morning, everybody. It's your boy coming through that fire again. Good morning for my West Coast family. Good afternoon for my East Coast family. And good morning, good afternoon for my Central family out in Colorado. My peoples out there. I hope this year has been good to you so far. Hope everybody has a blessed new year for 2024. I hope doors are open. I hope doors are closed that should be closed. Um, Whatever happened in 2023, just put it behind you. If it was good, you learn from it. If it was bad, put it behind you. Don't stay looking backwards. Look forward because you always got to keep it pushing, got to keep it moving. And so this is Daniel chapter 8. This is Visions on Visions. I title it. Let's do a quick chapter 7 recap. Um, Daniel has his first vision, and it's about the four beasts that will rise as kingdoms. And as we know, those beasts were the Babylonians, the Medes and Persian Empire, the Greek, and the Roman. And each one kept conquering each one. And in that vision, it showed Daniel the actual end times when the Antichrist comes, when Jesus returns. So let's get it popping. So in Daniel chapter 8, we're going to start with verse 1 through 4. When you're reading these verses, a couple notes to take on. So it talks about how Daniel has his second vision. It's in the third year of King Belshazzar. And remember, King Belshazzar was from chapter 5, and that was the king that God didn't see fit, and he wrote on the wall that your time was up. And in this vision, Daniel was in the fortress city of Susa in the province of Elam. I butcher that all the time. So it's in the province of Elam next to the Ulai Canal. Daniel looked up and he saw this ram. This ram was standing there and it had two horns, and it was right next to the canal. Both horns were high, but one was higher than the other. And the highest one came up last. The ram charged north, it charged west, it charged south. No other animal could take his power from this ram. So when you read these chapters, pretty basic. Not basic, pretty straightforward. And one note to take from this, that this ram symbolizes the Mede and Persian Empire. And if when it notices, it says it charges north, west, and south, because the Medes and Persian, if you're looking at that area from a map, it was where Iran is, and so that's the east. So the Medes and Persian came from the east, and they conquered north, south, and west, and so that was when they conquered the Babylonian Empire at that time. And then when you get into verse 5 through 8, Daniel sees a shaggy goat. It's a male goat coming from the west now, across the surface of the earth without even touching the ground. The goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes, and he saw that the goat was rushing at the ram with a savage fury. Like this goat didn't like this ram at all. The goat was infuriated with the ram, and he struck the ram, breaking his horns. And then it talks about how the ram wasn't strong enough. It couldn't withstand the goat. The goat trampled the ram and threw him to the ground. And no one could rescue this ram. So the ram was defeated. And then the goat was acting more arrogantly. At the height of the goat's power, his large horn that he had, it broke off. And then in the place of the large horn, four little conspicuous horns grew. And these horns pointed up to the heavenly four winds. And so in these verses, the goat represents the Greek Empire. And it's looking into the Greek Empire, they were actually called the goat people. So it's kind of funny that God used a goat to symbolize the Greeks, and they were actually called the goat people because they used a goat for something in their traditions or the religious something. I don't remember exactly, but I just know they were called the goat people. And it's interesting when he said that the goat flew across the earth without touching. And this is a detail symbolizing the lightning speed of the movement and conquest of the Medes and Persian Empire. So the Greeks were under Alexander the Great, and they conquered the Medes and Persian really fast. So I like how God symbolizes the goat crossing the earth super fast. And then the large horn on this goat was the height of the power of Alexander the Great. And then when Alexander the Great died, that's what it says the large horn broke off, and then four little horns grew up. And so that was Alexander's Great. The Greek Empire got split into four separate kingdoms, and then four kings came out of that kingdom, but still Greek. And then when you get into verse 9 and 11, they talk about the little horn, and there's one that they really hone in on, and it talks about one horn emerged and grew extensively towards the southeast in the beautiful land, and that was Israel. So this king would arise from that his section and went south, went east, and towards Israel. And it says this little horn grew as high as the heavenly army. It made some of the army and some of the stars fall to the earth and trample them. It acted arrogantly against the prince of heaven's army. It revoked the regular sacrifice to him, and he overtook the sanctuary. So it talks, this king became powerful in that area. And then when it talks about it grew as high as the heavenly army, so this king grew up strong. And when it says like it even made some of the stars fall to the earth and trample them, so this king took over Israel and brought down some of their highest official, their high priest, and that's what it means that it got the stars and made them fall to the ground and trample them. And he acted arrogantly against the prince of heaven's army, so he acted against God. He would say bad things about God, and he even took away the sacrifice that the Jewish people used to make at the temple and stop that. And a couple things that we learn here, some notes to take, is that this horn represents a brutal and infamous Seleucid ruler Antiochus the fourth, I believe was the fourth. He was one of the kings that emerged after the divided Greek Empire after Alexander's death. In 168 through 165 BC, Antiochus stopped the sacrifice to God at the temple. He even erected a Greek god Zeus and sacrificed pigs on the altar. So talk about how disrespectful this king was. And so when you get into verse 12 and 14, and they're still talking about the little horn, and now it talks about during the rebellion, the army was given up, talking about the Israel army. Together with the regular sacrifices, the horn threw truth to the ground, and he was successful in what he did. And then Daniel heard a loud voice speaking to another holy voice. They're asking each other, how long will these events of the vision last? The taking away of the regular sacrifice, the rebellion, the giving up of the sanctuary, and the army to be trampled. And the holy voice said, 2,300 evenings and mornings. See, Antiochus invaded Israel with the purpose of Hellenizing it. Hellenizing the Jews, he tries to force them to accept the Greek dress, the custom, the religion. And so when we read, you go back to Exodus chapter 29 to 30, chapter 29, verse 38 to 39, the Levites were to offer two sacrifices daily. One lamb was to be sacrificed in the morning and one in the evening. And so the 2,300 evenings and morning in verse 14 represents the number of sacrifices that had failed to be offered to God. Something for us to think about in our lives. What sacrifices that we used to do for God, but we don't do anymore? Like, did we read our Bible more and then somehow we just got off track and we don't read our Bible more? Did we used to pray more and give God more time, but now we're too busy with kids' sports or work, or just too busy doing nothing? And I'm going to be honest, sometimes I just want to not do nothing, just do something mindless. But what are these sacrifices that we used to do for God and we don't do anymore? And I want you to reflect and be honest with yourself that when you used to do these sacrifices, that you would sacrifice certain things for God, how was your life going? How did you deal with your problems that would come up? Would you deal with them easier? Or now, when you don't have these sacrifices, time with God, are you dealing with your problems? Are they harder to deal with? Is your life going downhill? Um, are you struggling with certain things that you never used to struggle with? So that's just something to think about when it comes to sacrifice. Let's sacrifice some more to God. Give God more of your time. Give God more of your love for other people, and you just give him more, and he will show up in your life. See, King Antiochus, he killed thousands of Jews. Eventually, a band of Jews led by Judah Maccabees defeated the Seleucid force and cleansed the temple. And then when you read into verse 15 through 17, and there's more interpretation of the vision, starts, and it says, while Daniel was watching, trying to understand, he heard a human voice calling from the middle of the Ulai. Gabriel, explain this vision to this man. Gabriel approaches Daniel and said, Son of man, the vision referred here is to the time of the ends. And so, just to clarify, this is not the end times when Jesus comes back. It is the end times, meaning that many more kingdoms are coming to take over other kingdoms. So it's the future for Daniel, but it's not the end times when God comes back and takes over control of the world, you know? And this is the first time in the Bible where an angel is called by name, Gabriel. Gabriel's, he's just a very important angel, I guess you say. All angels are important, but this one had a little bit more power. He was delegated certain duties. And then when you read verse 18 to 27, and now it goes into way more details when Gabriel is explaining Daniel these interpretations. It talks about why Gabriel was speaking. Daniel was lying face down. He fell into a deep sleep. And Daniel did this in his other vision. He lays down. He's just in awe, and he gets into this deep sleep. And then Gabriel wakes him up and told him, stand up. Get up, bro. I'm here to tell you the conclusion of the time of wrath that is appointed, time of the end. I like how Gabriel makes Daniel stand up. And I am so guilty of this because there'd be sometimes I wake up in the morning, get my coffee, and then I just go to the couch and I'm going to start praying. And I'm sitting down on the couch with my coffee with my feet up on my little footrest, and I'm just sitting there chilling, praying. And I believe, and I could be wrong, it happens a lot, and I'm okay with it being wrong, but I believe that when we're praying and we're worshiping, that we should not just be chill and relaxed, like praying and worshiping. I think that we should give respect and worship the holy God with on our knees praying. If you can, pray on your knees, because you're just showing that extra respect and just giving the holy God what he deserves, and worshiping with our hands up. When we pray, if you could pray with your hands up. And there's a very famous story in the Bible when the Israelites army were fighting the Amalekites, I believe, and it didn't matter if Israel had their best soldiers or their worst soldiers. When they were winning, it was because Moses was on the mountain praying with his hands up, and every time he got tired and his hands would come down, the Israelites would start losing. So that's when he realized Aaron, his brother, and I forget who was the other person, held his hands up and he prayed for victory and prayed for God to come through. And as long as his hands were up and Aaron were holding his hands up, they were victorious. So I believe that if you are physically able to worship with your hands up or pray on your knees, let's do it. Let's give God that glory. Let's give that that little extra worship and extra just holiness to him because he deserves, he's so holy. Let's just give him that. And I believe breakthrough happens when we worship at our best because God deserves the best. Now, if you're physically not able to, that's okay because God knows your heart. And God knows if you're struggling to hold your hands out or you can't get on your knees because you have knee issues. God knows it and he will take care of you no matter what. But I like how Gabriel tells him to stand up. And then when we keep reading, the two-horned ram represents the Median Persian Empire. The shaggy goat, that when you read in the verses, represent the Greek Empire. And then the long horn on the shaggy goat represented the first king. We know that to be Alexander the Great. And then after that, goat raises to power. That little horn, the big horn breaks off. And then the four little horns represents the four kingdoms that will rise from that nation without his power. And it talks about near the end of their kingdom, when the rebels have reached the full measures of their sin, a ruthless king will arise, skilled in intrigue, will come to throne. His power will be great, but it won't be his own. He will cause outrageous destruction. He will destroy the powerful, destroy the holy people. He will destroy many people in the time of peace. I mean, the list goes on and on about the horrible things this king does. But then I love how it says, yet he will be broken, not by a human hand. So God plays a role into this. And then Daniel was sick for a couple of days, just knowing about this vision. Then he goes about the king's business. And so that's the end of chapter 8. A couple other notes to in these verses that in 167 BC, Antiochus' army promised to peacefully enter Jerusalem. Then once inside, they suddenly attacked. And here's one of the, how you can see it, the fulfillments of verse 23, when Antiochus, master or intrigue, having killed he killed a great multitude of people. The Greeks plundered the city. They set it on fire. He caught the Jewish army off guard because he basically tricked them. And so when Alexander the Great was conquering, he didn't conquer Israel with force. He just told them, I'm taking over with peace. I mean, define peace at that time. But he didn't use his army. So Antiochus took a play off his book and did the same thing, but when he was inside the city, then he used force. And so that's a couple things to think about. I know a lot of this sounds like the Antichrist, but this king is not the Antichrist. And this is not the end times. It was the time at that time. But we know that after the Greek Empire, then comes the Roman Empire. So I know this sounds like a lot of hokey pokey sci-fi stuff, but every prophecy in the Bible has come true until we get to Revelation in the end times, and other, from Isaiah and stuff like that has not come to pass yet. But Daniel knew about these Babylonian Empire, the Greek Empire, the Persian Empire, and the Romans, how each one conquered each other before the Babylonians were even, when the Babylonians started the whole thing, because he was in Babylonia. But he knew that the Medes and Persian are coming, the Greek are coming, and the Romans are coming. And as we know through history, all that happened in order. So the Bible is a living book of records, and it's true. No matter what people say that has been written by man, yes, it was written by man, but controlled and inspired by God. People talk about there's missing books in the Bible. Those books are missing for a reason, because they weren't inspired by God. The Bible is true, and I just challenge you to start reading the Bible, get into the Word, start praying, and you will see miracles happen in your life. You will see breakthroughs happen. You will see God start showing up. But when God's showing up, you know who else is going to show up? It's the devil. And when you start seeing the devil show up, you start seeing these spiritual attacks, kind of, I hate to say it, give yourself a pat on the back, but know that you're on the right track, because if the devil's putting extra work in on you, it's because you're doing something right. It's because he knows he needs to break you away from God's covering. He needs to take you away from God's love and God's truth. So God bless everybody. Get into the Word, man. Get into the Word. Find some older, wiser people than you, and just be mentored and start living the life that God has for you. God bless everybody. See you in the next video.